morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's your man, Mark T, here with the Business of Basketball podcast, the Black Top to the Boardroom, supported by and produced by Habari Entertainment.
Let's go.
That's what's up. Hey, I'm here with my man, DJ Mustard. That's DJ Mustard with a Z. What's up, DJ Mustard? How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Wonderful. Blessed to be awake.
Ain't that the truth, man? It is wonderful. It's blessed to be awake. Waiting for the season. And hey, wait a minute. Gotta give a shout out to our producer, Damon. What's good?
What's going on? Good morning, all. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ready to
Good
talk some hoop.
morning, Phoenix. Yes. So for those that are tuning in, again, Mark T. Armstrong, founder of the No Backboard Basketball League. And I'm here with DJ Mustard and Damon, who is the proprietor of Habari Entertainment out here in Phoenix, Arizona.
Sir.
And I am launching the Business of Basketball podcast, Blacktop to the Boardroom. And the podcast is going to be exactly what it's talking about. It's going to talk about the business of basketball, from street ball and running your AAU program all the way up to non-NBA corporate type of basketball activities that are taking place. In addition to that, we will cover other sports and keep it within that genre of entrepreneurial efforts and understanding the business of sports below the professional level. Because, for example, DJ Mustard, have you heard about the Legacy USA Sports Facility out in Mesa?
I have not.
You have not. Damon, have you heard about the Legacy Sports Center in Mesa, Arizona?
No, I am definitely asleep.
From my understanding, it's one of the largest recreational sports facilities, definitely in the United States, if not the world.
Oh, wow.
And they built it specifically to attract regional, national, and international sporting events to the Phoenix Valley.
Wow.
Right. That was a business move to tap into an industry that already exists. What is that industry? Well, we all know about youth sports, right? So we know, and you may not know this, but youth sports is a multi-billion-dollar business.
Did not know that.
Multi-billion-dollar. What? Just think about, DJ. You have you have a son, right?
Correct.
Right. I knew you had a son. I'm tripping. So one day, DJ, though you're an accomplished shooter and you've won several hoop shooting tournaments, at some point your son may want to play basketball. And like all good fathers, you'll start him off in the driveway, the park, etc. But at some point you're gonna hand him off.
Right.
Right. I think smart fathers. Well, it depends. You could be a LeVar Ball, a Tiger Woods type of father, a Richard Williams, okay, and be all in.
Right.
That works. But if you are pursuing personal goals, objectives, building things, etc., then you're not in a position to invest everything you have into building this next great, most likely you're going to hand them off.
Right.
And most likely that's going to cost you money.
Of course. Of course.
Right. To do youth AAU basketball, anywhere from 3,500 to as high as 10,000, depending upon the level you play a year. That's a serious commitment.
Oh, for sure.
And then when you talk about you go into the more expensive sports, golf, hockey, that number goes up even further, right? So sports is huge. From my understanding, the sports industry accounts for at least 1% of our GDP, our gross domestic product, right? And sports are so big that you have countries that come up with initiatives to assure that they are developing their athletic programs in that country, both for the health of their citizens, but also for monetary purposes. Because again, sports is huge. So that's what the business of basketball from the black top to the boardroom is going to be all about. And we're going to have guests and highlighting profiles. So today, who here has heard any clips from J.R. Smith's interview on the I'm an Athlete podcast? Did you hear his comments about that?
I believe so, yes.
Where he was talking about why do professional or black people in general, but he was
Mhm.
speaking specifically to the professional athletes.
Right.
Why do we have to always go ask them for something? So, Damon, I think you, if you can cue that clip, let's look at that clip real quick from a J.R. Reed and his comments from
J.R. Smith.
J.R. Smith, excuse me. Yeah,
move you making right now, this transition that you're in?
My biggest move right now is trying to change as many minds that look like us back into the Afrocentric mindset opposed to the Eurocentric mindset. Like everything we talking about right now, like he was just saying, after he jumps on that grenade, who's going to follow him? We're so trained and it's so embedded to have that Eurocentric mindset that worry about myself, worry about me, worry about mine, worry about mine. I'm not going to help nobody else who look like me build up when everybody else do it but us. When you made over $100 million in your career, right? Is 105 going to change? 110 going to change your lifestyle? Realistically. You know how many people you can change lifestyle with $10 million in our hood? In our communities? We were in the lockout. We were in the, not the lockout, but we were in the bubble. George Floyd happens.
That's right.
We stopped playing. We're in there. We're gonna ask the owners for it. We're gonna ask the owners for it. Stop asking them for What are we asking them for? I went down the line, no bullshit. You can show, you can ask these dudes if not. I got Paul George sitting right here. I got DeMar DeRozan sitting right here. I got Russell Westbrook sitting right here. I'm literally sitting next to all of these dudes who are LA guys. I'm like, bro, I'm not counting your chips, but everybody else is. So you make 200, you make 200, you make 175, you make 150, you make 180. Why don't y'all have your own gym? Why we gotta go to UCLA to work out in LA every time? You got your own, y'all all come from the exact same community. You want to inspire kids that look like you. All it takes is 5 of us. 5. 250, 250, 250, 250, 250. What bank gonna turn us down? We about to build this whole shit out for our community. We're gonna build gyms, rec centers, start leagues and all of that. Who's gonna stop us? We got the money. We don't have the mindset. Our mindset, we'd rather go throw $60,000 in the club, in the strip club. Go throw $60,000 than go feed 2,500 people in the hood.
Yeah, that's powerful, man.
very powerful. And you know what else is powerful? That editing job. Yeah, that editing job was powerful as well. So, DJ Mustard, what do you think about those comments?
I think he's spot on, 100%. Just like you said, all of those dudes making all of those millions of dollars. Why don't they
Mhm.
have a gym? And then it's like, so how much are you paying UCLA?
Right.
And then over the years, how much have you given away to them? And could all of that money have been into a gym? And could you have gotten a return on your investment?
We've seen them donate to schools for them to build gyms. A lot of people do those things to help out the schools. They get a lot of gyms built in the elementary schools and,
Yep.
and some of the local
Yep.
community colleges and things that way. But I think what he's speaking of is just having their own facility, period. I mean, we do help out in situations and give to a lot of people to help them build, but we don't build our own.
Right.
And I think that's the main point that he was trying to get to. We do help out. There's not many of people that have given many of millions of dollars for stadiums and different things as athletes has helped. But I think he's trying to figure out a way for we can stop depending on someone else to get that building or just facilities, period, because we don't have that I know of that we own.
Yeah, I like that. And I think at the core issue is to Damon's point, athletes do those things. And we have great examples. LeBron's a great example.
Mhm.
Jalen Rose, an example of guys who have built their own institutions, if you would, schools. that doing great work
Mhm.
in communities they're from, and that's legit. That's needed. What we're talking about, to Damon's point, those dollars are going outside of our community into another community and benefiting that community long term.
Mhm.
I like DJ's mustard stop because what he's tapped into, which is very insightful, is look at the long term picture and the compound impact of those dollars going out of the community, where if over time the compound impact of those dollars being in the community,
Mhm.
it turns into a wise business move,
That's real.
so, and I think that I think this is a significant and important issue to continue address, and I'm excited that Jr. It seems like Jr. Smith is on his own path
Mhm.
of evolvement and evolution.
That's real.
He's gone back to school, got a 4.0,
Mhm.
joined the golf team at
Yep.
a HBCU,
Yeah.
Yep.
playing
Yep.
golf, and I love it. He reminds me a bit of Tyson. I love Mike Tyson because of he's been so transparent with his own evolution,
Mhm.
uh, and even to the point, some of the things that you may think Mike thinks, he actually thinks the opposite. He's like, there's, in other words, he's not proud of the big tough guy he was.
Right. Right.
Right. And he understood that a lot of that really came from a place of intense insecurity and
Mhm.
trauma.
Yep.
And for him to get to the point and to be able to share that and express it and be so transparent, man,
Yeah, man.
what courageous, what courage. So
Mhm.
for us, DJ Mustard, and our grind with the No Backboard Basketball League and the vision of creating opportunities for black and brown people to be able to have ownership in wealth creating assets in the sports field, this topic hits home,
Mhm.
right? Because when you think about, did you know there are 96 principal owners in the three major sports: football, baseball, basketball, right? So the three major sports. And I think if we even expanded it and added hockey and NASCAR out to five, I think the statistic will still hold. There's only w- there's only one black principal owner.
Wow.
Now I believe there's a total of six non-white principal owners, but the other five are I'll say foreigners from international origin, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Think about that, right? And DJ Mustard, we just came up. I don't know, Damon, if you caught any of these, but we was doing a series, and we're still doing throughout the year. I
Mhm.
think it's going to be standard. Our basketball 55, where we're working to bring awareness to people of the 55 years before before the NBA,
Okay.
right? And DJ, I'm sure you caught some of those clips we did. What was your takeaway being exposed to the entrepreneurship, the hustle, the grind of these innovators of sports in the black community prior to the NBA, as we kind of went through the basketball 55 during February?
It seemed that we started out really well. We had a lot of ownership,
Mhm.
um, and we were just striving and we were progressing really well. And then it seemed that kind of somewhere in the middle,
Mhm.
we just gave it away. I mean, it was almost like there was no rhyme or reason. Just kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters. We had black ownership with them, and then like, where did it go?
Mm.
Right.
So I think one of our biggest issues as far as ownership is we believe if something doesn't take off fast enough, well, it's not worth it. Like we don't want to just stick it through and see it to the end. We'll
Mm.
just make this little money and call it a day. But then years down the road, we're
Mhm.
like, oh, this is worth what now? And I've
Right.
sold it at pennies.
Right.
Mhm.
So I think our biggest thing is we need to think in terms of long-term ownership
That's real.
versus, 5 or 6 years and then just selling it to whoever the highest
Yeah.
bidder
I
is.
mean,
Nailed it.
I agree. I think that we do that way too much, man. You got to look at Puffy, Jay-Z, they all sold their clothing lines. These lines, they were huge at the time. And instead of us keeping the lines and letting them, build and build and build and become a Chanel or a Louis Vuitton,
Right.
we sell them,
Mhm.
and don't take the time to go ahead and build and make the brand iconic,
Mhm. Mhm.
because you have that ability, but we give up too fast
Mhm.
and we move on instead of keeping, you think Louis Vuitton didn't go through dark days? You think these brands didn't go through times where their brand wasn't at the height of everything?
Mhm.
So you have to take that time to say, hey, it's going to be a little bit of downtime, but let's figure out how we can be relevant during this decade, like we were the previous decade. And I don't think that I think we just give up and just move on, and instead of cultivating and building what we have.
I like that. I like that. And I mean, both points are solid, right? It is the long term, view. And I think that short sightedness, um, that comes from the impact of that slave mentality and the historical insecurities that black and brown people have to walk through in the United States. Because when you're working from a place of insecurity and scarcity, you're trying to get it now. You're trying to get a
Yep.
sense of security and safety now.
Hmm.
And the idea of building the idea of going through additional struggle, pain and suffering on top of your day-to-day struggle
Hmm.
to achieve something, that's special. You know, I got into Nipsey Hussle really late. Like, I was late to the ship on Nipsey Hussle, but I enjoy his story. I listened to many of his interviews,
Hmm.
and his more recent and his more when say positive music, when he's really laying down game and talking
Hmm.
about
Right.
business, the marathon piece, etc. And when you think about uh, one of his songs, I believe he has a clip where he's being interviewed by Big Boy, and he talks about it. I just didn't quit. I just didn't quit.
Right.
That was the only difference between him and anyone else. He just didn't quit. He had a vision, he
Hmm.
had a plan, and he just didn't quit. And when I hear some of the stories, on top of growing up in Los Angeles and going, dealing with the whole getting out of the gang culture and transitioning to
Hmm.
that, the process of building something and having it taken away, building something and going to jail, building something, and the sacrifices that you had to make to continue to do that. And on his part is to, in some ways, push off the fast money,
Hmm.
Right.
push off the
Right.
fast money to make that transition. So it is hard. And I think one of the things I'm excited about is I think this generation coming up, your generation, DJ Mustard, and generation of that, I think they're getting it. I think these guys are starting to understand money, finances, and the psychology, and
Hmm.
starting to take control of their internal world, start defining themselves instead of letting the world start defining them. Now, so what is taking place right now in the marketplace that could give us, some sense of hope that we're moving in the right direction? Well, have you guys heard of the Crew League?
Yep. Yep. I watch it. I watch it a little bit.
You
Yeah.
watched it? So,
Yeah.
Damon, I think I just introduced you to the Crew League.
Yeah, yeah.
So, for those who are not familiar with the Crew League is uh, all they did with the Crew League is they took the celebrity basketball game. Remember, when I was coming up, the celebrity basketball game was associated with a bigger event.
Right. Yep.
Right, you have this big event, and then you have the celebrities come play basketball. Well, the
Yep.
Crew League is simply the celebrity basketball game turned into a webisode series on Revolt. So, Damon, once you cue that up for us, the clip from the Crew League, and if you're not familiar with the Crew League, check this out.
That's the one video that didn't go.
Oh,
The
Audible.
OTE went.
Audible. So,
Right.
So let me tell you what this. So let me describe to you the Crew League. First of all, the idea of the Crew League came from, I believe it's his Hispanic brother, Elian Maroon, I believe, pronunciation of his name, but he's the um, creation of the league. Sean Combs, P Diddy, Puff Daddy is the executive producer, and it's on Revolt, which is cool. So Revolt, I don't know the actual details of the ownership. I know that Revolt is associated with P Diddy.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And I know, from my understanding, he started it. But when you understand business, you really want to peel back the layer and see how that equity is divided up.
Right.
But with that said, Revolt is, from my understanding, Revolt is considered a Black-owned network. So that's cool. And then they've come up with the Crew League, which is entering its third season.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it takes some pretty interesting elements that I've seen in other places and blended it together. So first thing is they play on a really, really small court. I mean, really small court. It's you can get the rebound, turn, maybe take one big dribble, two little dribbles, and you can shoot a 3-point at your other basket.
They're pretty much playing half court, pretty much.
Yeah, that's like they take. Yeah,
it's like a longer version of a half court.
In actuality, they've taken. Just imagine taking the two courts, and then that chunk of court in between the top of the 3-point lines. You remove that piece and then push the courts together, and you have the court.
Oh, okay.
So like the 3-point lines for each basket pretty much intersect, or the tops touch each other. They play 4-on-4, and it's a mix between celebrities, and then I think they have a couple of ringers, like legitimate basketball players.
I think so too. Maybe like one or two on their team.
Yeah. So you have celebrities, members of their crew, like Chris Brown and his crew. Then you throw a couple of more basketball players than entertainers in there, and you have your team.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they go through a league, then they have a tournament, and then they have a championship. And then the proceeds from the championship are split between the team and a nonprofit organization that they're supporting.
Right.
Cool concept.
Yeah, man.
Cool concept. And when you think about you have Cube. I like what Cube's doing with the Big Three. And what's interesting about the Big Three is it's starting to evolve into a second career.
Right. Yeah, like a post career.
A post career for athletes, like on the PGA Tour, you have the regular tour, then you have the seniors tour. So guys who played on the PGA Tour, but they come to the point that their age kind of hinders their ability to be highly effective on the regular tour.
Right.
They just go play in the seniors tour. So the Big Three in many ways is becoming the seniors tour for professional basketball players.
Right.
So from that standpoint, that's really cool concept. So we have Cube. And again, I'm really interested to peel the layer back on that relationship with the Big Three and Cube to see how much of the equity Cube actually has. Right. Because it's the ownership and the equity. That's where the wealth is created. That's where the leverage is created. And that's where the influence to leverage your brand to do things come from.
Yeah.
Because you're one of the decision makers in the process. But what I'm really excited about, so we've had our examples. We have the Crew League, Sean Combs, Revolt Television. We have Big Three, Cube, and what he's doing there. So those are two basketball products that, if they're not solely owned by a Black or brown person, they were started by a Black or brown person, and you have a Black and brown person in front of those. So that's really exciting. Moving up a level, though, who has heard about what Overtime Elite is doing with the game of basketball?
I have not, man.
I've watched a few of the videos, but I don't really know like the specifics of
The
what they're
ins and
doing
out of what they're
exactly.
doing.
Yeah. So, what do you think about the videos that you've seen? Because they have some talented young guys.
Yeah, I think almost or a lot of the players, they're still in high school and stuff, but they're dunking, they're throwing alley oops. I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, these kids definitely are taking advantage of the resources and the training and
Ain't that the
everything
truth?
that just wasn't available before,
Yeah.
and they're definitely doing a good job.
Ain't that
So
the truth? That is the truth. So, Overtime Elite. So, Overtime Elite was started by Overtime,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Overtime, DJ, do you think Overtime kind of copied the Ball is Life model and just did it better than they did it?
um I
That's a
don't
long pause.
I don't know if I'd say better, but I do feel like the audience that they're appealing to is definitely more engaged, and I think it's better that it's more indoors versus outdoor. I think
Hmm.
the engagement there is better.
That makes a lot of sense. So, Overtime Elite was started by Overtime. Overtime is a Web 2.0 sports media network that targets your Generation Z and millennials. Or millennials, Generation Z,
Mm-hmm.
the younger demographic. And they, like Ball is Life, they built their business by allowing people to upload highlight clips from high school basketball games, high school football games, high school soccer games, and street ball.
Mm-hmm.
Built an audience around that, start monetizing the content through ad revenue, and then start merchandising their own product and start pushing their own product out. And once they've established a strong foundation, they said, hey, we see what's going on in the G League. We see what the NCAA is moving towards with the name, image, and likeness.
Yep.
They're about to open the floodgates and give these kids the opportunity to start really monetizing their brand, even if they never make it to college or the pros.
Right.
So they launched Overtime Elite, which is a professional basketball league. They're 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are in high school,
Mm-hmm.
up to 1 year removed from high school, can earn $100,000 or more to play basketball. So they're foregoing the NCAA eligibility to play in an environment that will better prepare them for professional basketball, and they're getting paid. And from my understanding, if they do not get a professional basketball contract, don't know the details, but in general, if they do not get a professional basketball contract, they will receive $100,000 for tuition at the school of their choice.
Oh wow.
I don't know, bro.
Ooh, what? Hey, man.
Because the only reason I'm kind of iffy on that is because you gambling with these kids' lives.
Okay.
And that's
What?
that's a big gamble, man. And then you offering 100,000. I mean, what can you show these kids that you've done before is my first thing I would be thinking as a parent. What can you show me that you've gotten, who you've gotten there before?
Right. That makes sense.
Who is the highest draft pick you've gotten?
Somebody got to be first, though.
I feel you,
True.
man. But who wants to be the first? Who wants to sit there and watch this company fail to be the first? I understand, man, but there are tried and true ways to get in there that's already been set in stone. And this is I mean, it's a good idea, but it's going to be tough for him to get that off. I think, man. You got the G League. I think the G League, the only reason it has a chance is because it was built on the foundation of the CBA and all those other leagues.
Okay. Took it back to the CBA. A little
It
basketball.
kind of
So
gives you it kind of had a foundation already that was set. You know what I mean? And I'm kind of iffy on this with it. I thought it was just a league for kids to go to And while they're in high school, to give them a different option.
hmm
I didn't know they had to forego their college. That's why that kind of put me on a. That's kind of iffy on that.
But like any good product,
Mm-hmm.
you offer a guarantee, and their guarantee is
School regardless, right?
school regardless.
Right.
Now,
Hmm.
Damon, I gotta push on you a little bit, man, because tried, true, set in stone. Ooh,
Right.
ooh, that's rigid. That leaves no room for innovation and growth.
Right. No, that's true.
Now, let me give you some additional context that maybe I'm gonna see if I can persuade Damon over to the side. All right, so they say follow the money. Right.
Right.
If you want to know where to put your money,
Mm-hmm.
they say follow the smart money.
That's real.
So first and foremost, rest in peace, David Stern invested in Overtime Elite. So there's
Wow.
two. So you have Overtime. Overtime grew. Then Overtime was purchased by, I believe it's called Evade Sports. Okay. Then Evade Sports rolled out this idea of building a league from the Overtime group. And then you have David Stearns is an investor. I'm gonna mess you up with this one, Damon. Watch this. Jeff Bezos is an investor in
Wow.
Overtime Elite. Kevin Durant is an investor in Overtime Elite. There's a handful of other investors in Overtime Elite. They just built in many ways, DJ Mustard, I feel like someone grabbed my business plan, pulled it out, and then implemented it with regular basketball because they just built the facility.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
And they're wrapping up their inaugural season
Right.
Wow.
in that facility.
That's the mission, man.
You got that clip, man?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Let's roll the clip.
Don't get it. And one, coach.
Oh, that's just.
Oh, hey!
Okay, Nathan.
Oh my gosh, Nate.
With authority.
Man.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to the OTE Arena for the final game before the OTE playoffs. I honestly can't believe the inaugural season is almost coming to a close. We got a good one, though, to conclude, and I couldn't be more excited. It's your boy, Christopher London. I'm here with Mike Korzimba and Devontae Cobbs, a player in the building today. Hey, dunk from up here, man. We get lit, and we just going to chop it up. I'm excited.
Can't wait, man.
Here comes the tip-off. All right, here we go. You, Tez, you think about broadcasting in your post-basketball career at all? Or?
Yeah, a little bit. Just a little bit. Just to start over.
Hey, you can get a little practice in right now, so.
Yep, man. It looks great. The stadium, the floor, the light, everything looks great. Players look like they're high level. Yeah, I still want to see. I want to see what they do and who they get drafted. Man, because hey man, you playing with these kids. These kids, they want to get one chance at this, man.
No, I'm going to say this from a historical perspective. So, one, you're on point with your observation. So two, I like the way they have that young guys being the commentators, speaking in a language that young people relate to. The energy is solid. Historically, we go back to Harry Bucky Lou, who's the Damon. Harry Bucky Lou is the first African American that's acknowledged to play professional basketball. Right? And he's quoted saying that he played basketball without a backboard. For the first professional basketball game, so we're defining professional basketball as games where athletes got paid to play in those games. So they got paid to play. He was 18 when he played professional basketball. And then John Wonderboy Isaac, who is considered one of the best Harlem Renaissance players to ever play, led won a world championship with the Harlem Renaissance, and then he won another world championship. Uh, what we call that team. Uh, he was 19 when he joined the Harlem Renaissance. He had an immediate impact. So this whole concept of this whole concept of outside of football, if you can demonstrate the skill and ability and the maturity, you should have the opportunity. That's what living in a free market place looks like. You know, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of that. Um, and I think it falls on the family to know your child. Absolutely, for that child to know because college isn't for everybody, right? You know, and professional sports isn't for everybody, right? You know, so it's really understanding that. But here we have an emerging basketball league that has a long-term vision.
Yeah.
We was talking about that earlier, and they built an audience before they even
Yeah, man.
wrote out the league.
No, it looks great. They they have they have something because, like I said, it looks great, man. You can't deny how it looks. It looks like a professional
Yeah,
stadium. I mean,
yeah,
you look at it, it looks like you're at the Lakers game or something. So
yeah. I believe it's I want to say that particular arena is 10,000 square feet, sits
hmm
1,100 people, and is a part of a 100,000 square foot overall facility that provides training and education for them. And I think it's also shared with a couple other athletic franchises in the Atlanta area. So they're based out of Atlanta. But here's the rub, though. Again, saw a majority a bunch of black and brown boys on the court. Yeah, right. And the level, and though we mentioned Kevin Durant, I don't think there's any brothers that own this. That again, when we say principal owner, Michael Jordan is a principal owner, meaning he owns the majority of the shares of the other than go, I believe the principal owner owns 10% or more of the company. For example, I don't know if this is still true, but the Williams sisters, 20 years ago, let's say 15 years ago, approximately, purchased, became owners of the Dolphins, but they're not principal owners, right? So their ownership stake could be 1%. Now that 1% in $1 billion business is still millions, right? You're still writing a check for millions, right? So that brings us back to the topic. You have these emerging competitive basketball brands out there, and when we look at True League with True League with Vault Television, that's awesome. We have P Diddy, Black Man, gentleman that started with Spanish Brothers, beautiful. Who owns your Vault? That's my question. I know that Sean Combs is still the she's a principal owner, is he the principal owner?
mm,
Right. And then we looked at um we talked about Cube, right? I think Cube is the principal owner just because of Cube's mindset. And big three, yeah, I think so. So that's awesome. Um, and that's going to find its niche. And that's the other beauty about basketball, which like in sports is so broad and so vast. You can find a niche that you really good for. I also think that these groups, the main thing that we need to be thinking about is something that we stack everybody that's building something basketball based. You got to understand that the NBA is an association of groups and different people that came together to build something that became an association. So you can build something on your own, but to make it major, to make a major difference, you're going to have to connect with another one of these leagues to be able to make a big difference worldwide. We all can build something regional, but if we're going to do something to make a difference across the country, we're going to have some of these leagues that have to come together with, T Mac and Shaq, they're coming up with their 1
1-on-1 or 2-on-2. They need to also be in talks with Ice Cube, 3-on-3. We can make sure we have this is one league and it's all put together where we have different types of games, but it's different ways of playing it. But it's all in the same umbrella. You know what I mean? And that to me would bring more revenue for everyone and bring more eyes to what everyone is doing. It's just it can't be so splintered in what we're trying to do. Got to feel something more upwards, and I think that that'd be a big way to get us going forward.
I agree with that because that echoes what J.R. Smith
Mm-hmm.
said
Yep.
when we opened up.
That's real.
Don't so at the conceptual level, I get it. Don't actually know what that looks like for general basketball, but for the No Backboard Basketball League, I'm very clear on the way we want to do that, which is the building out of facilities across the country.
That's real.
And leverage crowdfunding equity, meaning I can put a facility up in the community and then I could take a piece. I can take 10% of that facility and make it available for members in that community to buy inexpensively.
Right.
So now we come in, we put the facility down, then we make it affordable for people in that community, Black and brown people in that community, especially, to be able to invest in that facility. Now they have ownership in this thing, in the facility, and those dollars now and that wealth is being recirculated in that community. And then now what you have is when you have a network of 100 of these around the country, and then each one of these has a percentage of local ownership there. You now need to move in the direction what Damon's talking about, is you create this network where everybody kind of can have their own flavor. DJ, I'm thinking East Coast No Backboard Basketball League teams are going to play different than West Coast No Backboard Basketball teams, because historically East Coast cats have been killing the paint, and banging, and West Coast guys have been running up and down the court shooting that rock. Right? And you're going to be able to allow everyone to find their flavor, be themselves, and get connected to a bigger whole. And that bigger whole is really driving change and innovation in communities across the country. That's real. We're going to go to a quick break and then we'll come right back. We'll come right back here.
It'll be a quick little message.
We're going on commercial.
Habari Entertainment Films present There's Only One Name for News with Damon and Aisha. Habari Live Podcast. Habari Entertainment, a race against time. On a quest for glory. Habari News Weekly, HabariEntertainment.com. Catch us for more. Visit us, HabariEntertainment.com.
We are back, the Business of Basketball podcast, from the blacktop to the boardroom, with my producer, principal owner of Habari Entertainment, my man Damon, and we got DJ Mustard here with the Z, DJ Mustard. So kind of to bring this all together, the reason why I was inspired to this whole concept of Business of Basketball podcast, from the blacktop to the boardroom, primarily inspired from what I found out years ago about the Black Fives era, which we touched upon briefly, right? Which was an era of, from the beginning of basketball in the early 1900s to about the early 1940s. You had Black entrepreneurship. They owned teams, they coached teams, they played in the teams, they managed their franchises, they traveled around the country playing. many of the innovations that are leveraged by today's professional sports was started in the Black Fives era by owners of black teams. For example, the Harlem Renaissance was the first team to put players on contracts, right? So instead of getting paid from the gate, they got a contract and their payment was guaranteed. The Harlem Renaissance is the first basketball franchise ever to establish a home court, meaning he went, identified a facility, establishing a naming agreement between them and the facility, and then that became the Harlem Renaissance Dance Hall, or the Renaissance Dance Hall became their home court where they played their home games. And then during the Depression, when things got tight, they innovated. They jumped in a bus and start traveling the country.
Wow.
Right. So when you look at, and then this was taking place at the same time that the Negro Leagues was taking place.
Okay.
Right. So we had these sports institutions
Mm-hmm.
in our communities providing employment, providing ownership, providing wealth creation, providing a service of entertainment and leisure in the community, including jobs. We had all of this, and there was a symbiotic relationship between the community and the teams. When segregation happened,
Mm-hmm.
because black folks wanted what the white folks had, so we was chasing that. When segregation happened, not only did we lose the utility value, and utility value simply means the value of how you use something, right? The value of how you use something, that's the utility value. So the utility value are the players.
Right.
Okay. Not only did we lose the utility value and the players left these black owned teams and leagues, but we lost the intrinsic value that it brought to the community. Right. So because once segregation happened, once desegregation happened,
right.
you had the black players leave, which meant the collapse of these teams in these black communities, which means those events and those activities that were taking place in those communities weren't happening anymore. That means that money and revenue that was being made at those games was no longer being made in those communities. In addition, if you recall from one of our early basketball 55s, I don't know if you know this, Damon, but the YMCA from 1853 were building black-only YMCAs and putting them in black communities.
Wow.
That's before the Civil War. The first all-black YMCA went up in Washington 10 years before the Civil War.
That's
Wow.
crazy, man.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And they continued to do that until desegregation. And do you know what happened when desegregation happened? Because it was desegregation, majority of those all-black YMCAs, guess what happened? Shut down.
Wow.
Lost the funding.
And when you look at, we all got to admit, basketball has a special relationship with the black community in the United States. It is different. It's like, man, it's part of the DNA, it seems.
Yeah, it's part of everything.
You know?
Yeah.
Why is that? A lot of it has to do because basketball started in the YMCA. The YMCA already had an international network of facilities, and they were true to the Christian values, not political. And they figured out, how can we be true to our Christian values and love all humans? And they built all black YMCAs. It's the fact that you had these black YMCAs that set a vision for people to see. And then out of that, you had churches starting basketball teams. And then you had social clubs starting basketball teams. And all of that was taking place. So that's my inspiration. The inspiration of the Business of Basketball podcast, From the Blacktop to the Boardroom, is to reinvigorate that spirit of entrepreneurship, that spirit of ownership that was prevalent prior to prior to the NBA starting in 1946, 49, depending upon what date you want to use,
Mhm.
and then all of that talent moving into the NBA,
Right.
collapsing
Yeah.
the ownership of sports, and the legacy of
Yeah.
that spirit died with and one. And one was not the greatest steward. They were the inappropriate steward for that. And
Mhm.
that's a story for another time. But that spirit of black basketball came all the way through. It hit with and one, and then when and one sold out and kind of just went
Yep.
faded away. There you go.
Yeah, man. The roots of and one, you know, how those brothers started, you know, selling T-shirts
Mm-hmm.
out their trunks
Mm-hmm.
and building it with slogans. Then slowly was able to come with the iconic image that they came with
The
the
faceless man.
faceless basketball player.
Yep.
And to build from that and then become so iconic. You have the videos, the mixtapes that
Mhm.
came with Skip to My Lou,
Mm-hmm.
all these things that were built from them, and then they just give it up. And
Let me tell you why. Some clarity. One, and one was started by a couple of white guys that were graduates from the Wharton School of Business.
okay, I thought they was brothers for some reason. White guys.
Okay. Two, the first business was a basketball database business.
Wow.
Um,
So that's why they
That-
got their slogans and all the sayings. and
no,
things from?
they started off as a basketball. What you find in business and people who are doing business projects instead of passion projects.
Mhm.
No backboard basketball league is a passion business. It's a purpose. It's my purpose in life to bring this thing into existence.
Right.
For them, it was a business, and it's like, how can we make money? That's how a lot of entrepreneurs like, I want to make money, I want to be an entrepreneur, and they look for opportunities. That's why it's so easy for them to exit,
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
because all they're looking is for the opportunity.
Right.
Where some people's like, I believe I'm like Elon Musk believes he is purposed
Mhm.
to do what he's doing.
Right.
Right.
Right. So with that said, to tie it all down as we close, is they started a database business that didn't work. They pivoted to the T-shirts and the slogans that start catching on, and they established a decent apparel brand because they were capturing the attitude of the street.
Right.
Right.
Right. Then they stumbled upon the Skip to Malou tape, and that
Mhm.
whole story is interesting in itself. Then upon stumbling upon that tape, they realized they had something that started that, and then after that, they did the first short tour.
Mhm.
Some guys just jumped in a van and went around and played. They captured the video,
Mhm.
then they made a mixtape that caught on and then exploded. Now, here's the thing. They were at about 50 million a year when they
Wow.
jumped off on that mixtape. On the other side of it, they were and it's in Sports Illustrated. There's a Sports Illustrated out there sometime early 90s
Mhm.
with and one on the cover. You can find it. And one was doing 250 million a year
Wow.
in product and licenses, and that's when they sold.
Goodness.
Okay, that's when they sold. Why did they sell? One, they sold because there's two reasons they sold. In my opinion, it's not documented. It's just a brother reading the tea leaves because I followed it
Mhm.
for the past 20 years. One, they sold because they grew by $200 million, and these brothers weren't making more than a hundred and maybe 150,000 a year.
Wow.
Those numbers are out of proportion because it exploded off the back of the mixtape and associating the brand with the
Right.
streets.
Right.
The second is the year they sold is the same year Michael Jordan's The Jordan was released. The year and one sold is the year the Jordan brand was released. If
Okay.
you're in the sneaker game, you know this. And here's the deal. I'm confident. I can't prove it. I'm confident there was back channel conversations going on because you also have to remember these guys weren't stewards of it. So when
Mhm.
they're hearing you guys are screwing the game up, you're screwing the game up, you're screwing the game up, right? Because this is when you had high school kids going to practice, and coaches can control them because they spent 5 minutes doing this move instead of running the
Skip
offense.
to my little
Right.
and hot sauce.
Right.
Doing
Right?
all
It's
the
like
moves.
we have to solve this problem. We have to solve this problem. Right?
Right.
So when you have this so you have this one, the players are getting frustrated because they know you're making money off our back and you were
Right.
not getting paid.
Right.
And then two, we know that Michael Jordan got a shoe coming out and Nike's about to push all this money into this.
Yeah.
Would never be the number one shoe brand,
Oh no.
right? Would never be
Right.
number one shoe brand. And it's come to the point that there's too much internal tension. So
Yeah.
let's just sell the business.
Right.
Right.
And that's why I'm of the opinion they sold the business, because though they stumbled upon it, they were never stewards of the culture. Someone who was a steward of the culture would have never sold the business.
Right.
And one would be $1 billion brand right now.
Oh, definitely.
and
definitely.
maybe might have beat Overtime Elite to that punch.
Mhm.
All right. Hey, this has been an outstanding time together.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
DJ Mustard, I want to appreciate you getting up early in the morning and come hanging out with us.
Of course, love to do it.
And Damon and Habari Entertainment, we love the platform. Thank you very much. And if you're in the Phoenix area and you need a podcast studio, someplace to promote your business, maybe cut a commercial, go online to habarientertainment.com and reach out to my man Damon. He'll get you hooked up with a great
Definitely will.
studio and outstanding prices. With that, I'm Mark T with DJ Munsterd and Damon, and we're out. Be blessed.
This is a basketball.